My biggest issue this year was anatomy. For the first full semester, I could not figure out a way to study it effectively other than rote memorization, and it ended up being my weakest. In this semester exam, I got more than 50% of the anatomy questions wrong, and that was definitely a wake-up call. So in the following weeks, I switched gears and focused on what worked, what didn't work, and improving my method. And this time, ended up getting 92% of the questions right in my latest exam. Let's talk about how. As a first year, you don't have a good mental model for how the body's anatomy works, what the names are. It's all a lot of new terminology. Everything has a different innervation and attachment. It's a lot. The point is that your conceptual understanding will be weak for a long time at the start. You just have to accept that. But it is a time game. It's a steep learning curve. The more you do, the more stuff you get exposed to, the better you'll get. The first essential part of studying anatomy before you have any sessions in the dissection room or have any teaching with your professor is that you need to be doing pre-reading. Everyone says you should do this anyways in med school, but for anatomy this is very, very important. It's because our prosections, dissections, or real-life demonstrations are very limited in med school, and the biggest mistake people make is not coming in prepared. If you don't prepare for them, you're wasting such an important opportunity to learn. I made this mistake so often in the beginning. I wouldn't make time for pre-reading, and then I just end up in the dissection room standing there looking like a lemon, not knowing what the TA is talking about or going through with us. But then I switched up my attitude. I used to read Moore's textbook in the beginning, and then I also maybe watched a video of Ninja Nerd or Ken Hub. Those are very good. When I did the simple 1 to 2 hours of prep, those dissection sessions became an opportunity to really improve my conceptual understanding. I could actually focus on asking about stuff I don't understand, the difficult things, rather than just looking at a liver and not knowing what I'm looking at. I genuinely think that learning about the specimens and organs in the dissection room is the most valuable way to lay the foundation when it comes to studying anatomy. By picking up the heart or having a look at the bony pelvis, you get to see all the parts, see where everything comes from, find the arteries and the veins, look how thick things are. You really do get a much better feel for yourself. Every med student agrees with this because it's obvious. If you've touched and held and understood the specimen by practically looking at it and understanding it with someone, that's way better than just reading about it in a textbook. And best of all, in these sessions, you're being taught by surgical interns or anatomy demonstrators. They've only recently learned what you're learning, so they're probably very good at explaining it to you. Ask them as many questions as you want and clarify your doubts. Don't do that thing where you just nod your head and go like, yeah, I get it, when you don't really understand anything. Now that you've pre-read and used the practical sessions, it's time to focus on the notes, the textbooks, the websites, and do the reading. But what you're going to do is you're going to try and go through the resources in a way so that you're memorizing as much as possible right there and then. The technique I use for this is layering. It's really simple. You just need to make a few subtle changes to the way you absorb and go through information. Instead of linearly reading through the chapter up to down, you layer and organize the way you go through the information so that you're reading the easiest information in the chapter first, then the medium, and then the hardest. The first easiest layer obviously involves you skimming through the chapter, looking at keywords you don't understand, and getting a general gist of the organ's function and anatomy. Then the second medium layer is you diving a little bit deeper to get to the organ structure, understanding the overview concepts, but ignoring the overly hard stuff. And lastly, the third hardest layer is tackling all the difficult things that you didn't understand, the innervations, the attachments, the things that you have to memorize. When you take in information like this, you'll see that you'll be able to remember, understand, and memorize a lot faster. Because after understanding the easy and medium stuff, you've created a baseline for yourself. So your brain is going to be able to associate this hard information with that baseline a lot faster. The mantra is that if you don't understand something, then your brain simply isn't ready to take that information in. If you just went in and started to obsess over all the details in every paragraph before having a good general idea, you'd get stuck at line 4. As for the resources I recommend, I've tried and experimented a lot this year with textbooks, notes, 3D anatomy apps, and there's nothing specific that I swear by at the moment. I used Moore's Clinical Anatomy for a lot of the stuff that I did, and it was very helpful because it had a lot of pictures, a lot of diagrams, good explanations, but then again, it comes down to preference. My professor swears by Snell's because she loves the amount of detail in there, but to me, I wasn't able to understand it initially. Maybe if I start reading it down the years when I'm at her stage, it would be helpful. So it does depend on the type of learner that you are. But textbooks aren't my go-to resource at first. The first things I look at are either condensed notes from older students or these anatomy resource PDFs that our med school gave us. You can find really high quality notes online as well, so use those condensed notes. Use websites like Instant Anatomy or Ken Hub. Another big one to really help with your spatial reasoning is to use 3D anatomy apps like Complete Anatomy. The software has these interactive 3D models of the body, and it really helps with imagining and picturing picturing where everything else is. Using this was the only reason I could so clearly imagine where everything in the mediastinum was, or where all the forearm muscles were, and actually remember the layers of them. And then the final resource I come to for understanding is the textbook, and it's only for those topics, the specific things that are either very important in the exam or that I don't understand at all. The thing is, most of anatomy is looking at a muscle, knowing its function, knowing about its nerve supply, its blood supply, and that for me is much better absorbed if I look at a few good bullet points on a website or in someone's notes instead of reading a 50-page chapter in the textbook. I am not a fan of using flashcards for the more conceptually heavy content that we have to learn. But for anatomy, which involves a lot more rote memorization, using flashcards was actually so helpful. I was using pre-made Quizlet flashcards in the weeks leading up to the exams, and bashing through these decks on a daily basis was so helpful because it's quick. The answers are like 3 to 5 words and you either know it or you don't know it. I think the fact that I did like 100 anatomy flashcards per day leading up to the exam was one of the biggest reasons that I actually improved so much in anatomy. So yeah, 100% recommended. Use someone else's deck, make your own, it's worth it. I'm only just going into my second year of med school and I'm slowly developing the way I understand anatomy. But this is the sort of stuff that I wish someone told me a year ago. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope this has helped, and I'll see you in the next one.